Wow, solid since 1830.
Wow, these are amazing. To think they've been here for over 200 years.
So today we're going to be taking you on a walk of early 1800s railway ingenuity. We're going to be following the path of the Silkstone Waggonway, right from where the coal came out of the ground, which we're heading to in a minute, all the way through the 4 miles to the Barnby Canal Basin.
We're going to be covering the clever 5-stage process by which the coal was transported.
So on the site of the old Husker pit, now back in the early 1800s there were lots of small-scale mining operations going on in the area where we're walking now, which is Silkstone near Barnsley. The coal was of particular good quality. It was known as a Silkstone Seam, and you got quite a lot of heat with very little ash as a byproduct. So all around this area there were small mines. There was one about 500 yards over there called the Moor End Mine. So we're going to take you to one place where the coal came out of the ground and started on its Waggonway journey all the way down to the canal basin.
So today is a lovely sunny day, and you can just imagine all those workers all those years ago.
Some sort of culvert here to let the water run off. Now we are on the site of an old mining tragedy as well from 1838, which we'll cover in a future video. So if you'd like to make sure you don't miss any of our future history content, railway content, mining content, then please subscribe to the channel. So if you fancy following this walk yourself, we are currently in a place called Nabs Wood. There's a little pull-in by the side where there's room for about 3 or 4 cars. You can always park there, it's never that busy. And this is where we're starting today's walk. So what we have here is the remains of a day hole.
So tell us more about what a day hole is, John.
Well, day hole was where the miners dug into the ground, but they could work by daylight because it wasn't very deep under the ground. Now this particular one has a tragic tale, which I say we'll cover in another video. But the coal came to the surface a few hundred yards from here at the pit head. It was put on wagons that were then hand pushed towards the next stage of the journey, which we'll take you to, which is about a quarter of a mile away. So that's the stage 1 of taking the coal from when it comes to the surface here all the way to the canal basin.
Stage 1 of 5.
Yeah, the records show that at the time this waggonway was built, whole families were employed together in the mining industry. The fathers, the mothers and the children too.
Children as young as 6 and 7 were allowed to work down the mines. You just can't imagine it today, can you?
So I've got the coal this far onto where the road is now. There's a railway bridge just behind us, but that wasn't obviously there in the early 1800s. So the next problem they have is how to get the coal up this quite steep incline, which I think goes on for between quarter of a mile and half a mile. So we'll go and look at the next stage of the ingenuity. So you can't walk this part of the Waggonway route today because it went off in a diagonal direction through where those houses are. As you walk up the street, remembering that the Waggonway was sort of a diagonal to where we're going, take a look at these buildings. They were built by the South Yorkshire Coal Company a few decades after the Waggonway ceased to be in operation, but really attractive architecture. Don't know if you can see on the top of that one, but it says South Yorkshire Coal Company, or an abbreviation thereof. So we're certainly getting an idea of how steep this particular part of the route was. You couldn't just push the wagons up by hand, and even a horse wouldn't have been able to pull them up this fairly steep incline. So we're going to have a think about how that part of the journey was managed. So we're just about to enter another set of woods which takes us closer to the route of the original waggonway. So the answer for stage 2 was the Blackhorse engine. So situated maybe a couple of hundred yards away from where we are at Blackhorse Farm, they installed a big steam engine which basically pulled the wagons up with the heavy coal till it got to the top of the hill. There's no evidence of that left today, except a nearby street is called Blackhorse Drive. Rather odd looking piece of sculpture over there, I'm not quite sure what it represents. So we're going through a gate in a minute, which I'm led to believe was actually on the old Waggonway, and these white cottages to our left were miners' cottages which were there at the time that the Waggonway was in operation. So I'm guessing the line of the engine and the pulley was down there and up there. So we've nearly got to the top of the hill now, but straight ahead of us is what was a turnpike road back in the early 1800s. So we can see here by the road, there's a little representation of the Blackhorse engine, a representation of the Waggonway, and showing the next part of the ingenuity, which was the Blackhorse tunnel situated near here. You can just see behind us a railway line, the Silkstone Common Station a few yards behind us, but once they got to the turnpike road, there was 100 yards of tunnel going underneath the road to cut out the steepest bit of the incline to get the coal ready to plunge down into the valley behind us. Just going through the station now and across the line. Boundary that way, Huddersfield that way. So the entrance to the tunnel is actually in somebody's private garden, so we can't go there. But you can see the sign here which shows where the coal came out the other side of the tunnel, and it now has to make its way on stage 3 of the journey down quite a steep valley. I will explain how they did that. So I've had stage 1 from the day hole to the road, stage 2 from the road down below up to the turnpike, and stage 3 under the turnpike, cutting out a bit of the top of the incline and through the Blackhorse Tunnel 1830. So now I'm going to take on the 4th part of the journey of this coal. So come down the road about 200 yards from where we saw the tunnel sign. We now need to carefully cross.
We know we're on the right track because it's telling us on the sign, so we're going to climb over this few steps, over the stile, and head down the field.
And I think I can see the line of the old Waggonway over there, that diagonal line leading down the field. You can see the steepness of the bank. They had to get the coal down without it running away and killing and injuring people at the bottom of the valley. So coming down off the road, and we can see the line of trees which shows us where the incline plane was, built in 1830. So just got onto the route of the old Waggonway. So it's blocked off in that direction, I believe, hence us having to come down Cone Lane and the road up there. It's possible, we're not sure. If any of you out there know, then please let us know in the comments that this is where the incline plane split, where one set of wagons could go up, the other one could come down, and there could be a pause in operation. So one part of the track going that way, one part of the track coming down that way.
Makes sense, but who knows? You will.
Somebody out there will know.
What an amazing piece of history we have here, John.
I'd be inclined to agree. So as we come down, you can see the quite steep embankment on either side here that the mine owner, Robert Clark, had to employ people to build in order to get the incline plane on a nice smooth trajectory. And we can see a beck down there, and we can see the trail going across the beck, so we'll see how we got the trail over that beck. And I think if we just come off the Waggonway on our way down, we can see a bridge that took the Waggonway over the Silkstone beck behind us. There we go. Wow, wonderful. This is amazing. So pleased we found this. So you can see the bridge built probably 1830, carrying the line of the incline plane above us and down towards Silkstone. Just going to go down and see if I can get access to the other side of the bridge. Right, if we attempt to walk under this bridge, you've got to give this video a like. Is that a deal? Oh, this is amazing. Walking under nearly 200 years of history. Photo opportunity. Me and an 1830 bridge. Now I'm going to come back. So it's only about 10 yards in width this, but well worth coming to see. Wow, solid since 1830. So remember, give us a like. And if you've not subscribed to this channel already, we'd love you to do so. It's absolutely free, and we'll be bringing you lots of history content in the coming months as we explore the paths that lead us to the past in the UK. So as we go down, we can see occasionally coming to the surface parts of the old Waggonway here. It's a bit windy, I don't know how well this will come out, but there's a track behind me leading onto the main incline plane. Now there were various branches leading onto the main Waggonway coming off it, so there's perhaps a pit in that direction over there, leading up there. So as we come down the line of the incline plane, you can see plenty of old workings around us where small-scale mining operations would have taken place. Quite easy to load the coal onto the wagons and down towards Silkstone, which is another 400 yards in front of us. So just coming down part of the incline plane, and we've found our first solid evidence of the old Silkstone Waggonway right here underneath Dawn's feet.
My guess is that they're all hidden under this grass here.
So the wagons coming down here were in collections of 8, and there'll be a brakeman at the back making sure that they didn't slide down, and he would communicate with a chap at the bottom using semaphore signals all the way down this valley. So just coming to the final bit of the incline plane here where it met Silkstone Cross. So there's some very old buildings behind me which I think were there in the early 1800s. There's a garage, modern garage behind me, which used to be a truck shop, and that's where the mine owner would sell all mining equipment to his employees. Often their wages were gone before they even got them because they had to buy the equipment. So we think that the incline plane finished somewhere just behind me. So we've got a way of very easily aligning where the Waggonway went now, because we have a replica piece of rail and an old coal truck.
And a busy road.
So the fifth and final stage, once we reached Silkstone Cross just over there, the coal was loaded onto massive wagons like this. I think it could contain 53 tons of coal, and it was then taken
In that direction, where we're heading now.
We're going to see something that never fails to amaze and impress us every time we walk or run this way.
Down this side. Down here. Wow, these are amazing. To think they've been here for over 200 years.
You'll notice that these stones have now turned diagonally, and I've read that's because it provided a wider platform for the horses' hooves to land on and not going into the mud. So we can still see the rivets where the rails will be driven in. It's absolutely amazing. There are a few of these around in the country still, but local to us, as I say, every time we walk down here, every time we run down here, we're actually filled with wonder at these old stones that were such an important part of Britain's early industrial revolution, carrying the coal from the small Silkstone Seam workings up there all the way onto the Barnsley Canal and around the country. And we'll tell you in a minute one special place where a piece of Silkstone Seam coal ended up in the mid-19th century. It was reckoned that soon after it was opened, 85,000 tonnes of coal were being transported along here in 1 year. On this particular bit of the old Waggonway, we are treated to both stones lying parallel, so you can get an idea of the full width of the wagons that came along here.
Yeah, this is my favourite section of stones.
And my favourite place to see them is just over here, Pothouse Hamlet. There's a lovely cafe and restaurant, so we're going to take a bite to eat before we carry on the second half of our journey. Amazing pieces of industrial architecture still with us, and long may they continue. So we just crossed the main Silkstone High Street now, which used to be the main road before the bypass was built, and continue our route along the Waggonway.
So we've just enjoyed a lovely lunch at the Pothouse Hamlet, and yes, and now we're going to walk off that lovely meal.
So you may have seen during our journeys two different dates, 1809 and 1830. This original Silkstone Waggonway was built in 1809 by the Barnsley Canal Company, from their basin at Barnby, a little bit further along, about 2 miles along here, down to where the replica wagon was that we've just seen. The extension was then built by a man called Robert Clark, who was the mine owner up at the Husker Pit, and that was completed in 1830. Hence the 1830 date you saw on the tunnel sign. As well as the main bit of Waggonway, the little pass leading off to all the little mines around here was actually 8 or 9 miles in total of trackway that was laid. So obviously today no rails remain, just a few stones. A report stated that by 1872 all the track had been pulled up and sold off. Slight faint traces of the stones along here on this section as we head towards the canal basin. So due to the length of this section of the Waggonway, just over 2 miles long, you wouldn't want just one horse and wagon operating on it at any one time, because it would get pretty crowded. So what we've got here is a passing place. You can see one set of stones leading here to where this rail has been replaced, and the normal set of stones, the regular set of stones leading up on the trail. This isn't original, although we believe that a piece of original track was taken to what is now the Railway Museum, the National Railway Museum at York, and it was on display there in 1927. So just approaching the end of our journey now along the Silkstone Waggonway. Ahead of us, about 100 yards, is the old canal basin. Ironically, although this is the end of the journey, it's where the story of the Silkstone Waggonway began, because before the Silkstone Waggonway there was something called the Low Moor Waggonway, which the Barnsley Canal Company had put down.
So that coal that began its journey all the way back at the Husker Pit is now here.
And it would be loaded onto barges and taken all around the country. In fact, I found an advert from the 1850s advertising Silkstone coal for sale in London. And in fact, we think that some coal was taken down to the Great Exhibition in 1851. It's what local sources say, although I haven't found any evidence of Silkstone coal being on display at the Great Exhibition. That's not to say it wasn't, but I couldn't find any documentary evidence in the contemporary newspapers at the time. So let us know if you know anything different. So we hope you've enjoyed joining us along that journey on the historic Silkstone Waggonway. If you have, please give this video a like, and if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, remember it's absolutely free, and we'll be bringing you lots more history content in the coming months from all around the UK.
We hope you can join us next time, where every journey begins with a path to the past.